Bonjour! It is with deepest pride and greatest pleasure that I, Monsieur Jacob Miller, invites you to sit back, relax, and jot down some notes while I discuss the proper embouchure and articulation for the French horn. Now, first, let me apologize for my terrible French accent. It's just that playing the French horn makes me so excited. And you know, you should be excited too, because it's a very fun instrument to play. It has a beautiful tone when played correctly. But to be able to play it correctly, there's a lot of things you have to learn before you can just jump right into playing music well on the French horn. And at that, I would like to discuss the proper embouchure, which is the positioning of the mouthpiece on the mouth, what happens mechanically to get the sound to respond on the French horn, get notes to come out, and also attacking notes and proper articulation on the horn. So let's start with embouchure, which happens to be a French word, by the way. As you can see here, the mouthpiece is significantly smaller than that of a tuba mouthpiece or a trombone mouthpiece. It's close to the size of a trumpet, but trumpet has more of a cup shape to it, and this is more of like a V as it goes down, as you can see. As you look inside here, what our main goal is to have 2/3 of our upper lip filling the mouthpiece and then 1/3 of the lower lip. Let me say that again. Upper lip, you want about 2/3 to go inside here, while 1/3 of the lower lip. So rather than low brass like trombone, baritone, tuba, where it's 50-50, half and half, where you just put it right in between the lips, the French horn is going to be up slightly. And a way to start figuring out exactly where that feels and like getting that right consistently every time you put the horn to the face, there's some tricks that you can do to become better at this. One, you can start putting the mouthpiece right under your nose and just moving it down slightly and stopping once you feel the bottom part of the mouthpiece touch the fleshy part of your lower lip, and you leave enough room in the upper lip. The best way to do that, to look at that, is using a mirror, or like even pulling out your cell phone or something that has a reflection where you can see yourself doing that. It'll be easier to tell when you start buzzing and making a sound, easier to remember where exactly everything goes mechanically. But another thing to do, as far as getting the feel for consistently placing it up to your face, pretend that this is a little glass of water, and you're just tipping it here to take a sip. Obviously, you're not going to pour a bunch of water with the majority of the bottom of the glass like covering up your chin, and you'll have water splash all over your chin and like go down your body. So what you want to do is just pretend like that's the cup, the bottom here. When it comes up, you want to touch the bottom first, and then let it just gently rest against the top to where the majority's in the top, to where water can just flow in your mouth like you're taking a drink. Those are a couple little tricks that you can do to remember the embouchure of the French horn, so keep that in mind. Now, when we start talking about playing, different things to keep in mind. Anytime, this is really important, before you start playing, brass players, any brass instrument, you gotta get your lips warmed up before you can just start playing. And I like to do lip buzzes, so just lots of air, just tons of air, and just letting your lips buzz and everything, just getting everything all warmed up. I like to just do that for a little bit before I even put the mouthpiece to my face. Before you go into lip slurs or any kind of scales or anything, another thing to do is just kind of like making sure everything's relaxed here. I like to just gently do this to my jaw. Another thing about the jaw when it comes to French horn embouchure is that you want it slightly forward when you're playing. And the best thing to do is imagine that you're spitting out a watermelon seed. French horn players typically use a phrase, the pucker smile, when it comes to their embouchure. The embouchure. And that has to do with the watermelon seed spitting. So if you just quickly go, just like pretend you're spitting out a seed, then that'll help you develop the right kind of positioning of the jaw and everything. So, everyone grab your mouthpiece, and once we've done some lip buzzes and started pretend we're spitting watermelon seeds out, let's do that into the mouthpiece. So just try taking in lots of air and just holding out for about nice 4 counts or so. 1, 2, ready. And then I like to just do that over and over again. Just see how long it can hold it out and sustain the pitch. Another thing to keep in mind, if you're an older player that has facial hair, it's always a good idea to keep the upper lip trimmed so that your mustache does not affect your playing. So that can be tricky for a lot of people. Now that we've talked about lip buzzing and the proper placement of the mouthpiece, let's try to make a sound on our horn, playing our C. So after we went into the mouthpiece and everything, the mouthpiece is positioned 2/3 upper lip, 1/3 lower lip. Play an open, just nice C that is under the staff, under the treble clef staff. It's always a good note to warm up on because it's not too high and it's not too low. It's very good for beginning players as well. So just try to match this pitch and just hold that out for about 4 counts. So work towards holding that out longer and longer, then you'll change notes. You'll be able to play scales later on. But consistent buzzing, consistent airflow is very crucial when it comes to good tone on the French horn. Now, one of the biggest problems that any level French horn players face, myself included, is our confidence sometimes with pitch accuracy and like hitting the note right on the first try. Since we have our F horn and the B flat horn on the double horn and everything, and we have our thumb trigger, especially as we go higher, it becomes harder to just attack a note right on and become more accurate. So a good exercise to do is just a nice like staccato 8th note is just hitting it, resting for a bar, then hitting another note in a scale. I like to do that on just my C major scale. So, for example, then I rest, then I come back in, playing my D, take another little break, and then play the E, and just keep that going, because that eventually builds muscle memory of where those pitches are. It's a lot easier to just go right in order without breaks in between. So that's always a good exercise to practice. Challenge yourself and just write out some pitches randomly, like a higher note, then a lower note, with about a whole measure in between. And then you'll become a lot better at articulation and your accuracy and overall confidence. Because a lot of horn players struggle with that. Now, as far as articulation on the horn, the last thing we're going to cover, it's important to think about all brass instruments have the ability to just start a note with just an air tag. What I mean by air tag is just buzzing the lips and using your air to produce the sound without using any tongue or like a harsh front to the note. So for example, if I were to go as a singer, rather than like a glottal attack, that same thing transfers over to brass instruments and the French horn. So an air attack. attack with the tongue. When you play French horn with the tongue is just tapping. I like to think about it kind of the space in between the upper teeth and the lower teeth, and for some notes it's actually at the top of your roof of your mouth, where the teeth meet up with the roof of your mouth, and that's where you'll aim the tip of your tongue. And every time you touch the tip of the tongue to that part of your mouth, that'll be the new sound of the note. Now, that's always a good thing to keep in mind when you're warming up, is those two main ways to start a note, start a sound, and articulate. It's air attacks. I like to start by playing Amazing Grace with just air attacks and just seeing how clearly I can hit each note without breaking the sound and fracking a note. So, for example, just lip slurring and using my air. That's without tonguing. Now this is tonguing. Excuse me, let me try that again. You can obviously tell there's a clear front to the note. Depending on the style you're playing, it's best to use either a tu or a do or a ta or a da. It's hard to do something, it's hard to say a syllable such as lu or moo like a cow or something. So I like to stick with tu or ta or do or da. Well, I really hope you enjoyed this video and that this was beneficial for you as a beginning horn player. And I hope that you learned something about the embouchure and articulation on the French horn. Most important things to keep in mind, no matter what you're doing, any brass, any instrument you're playing, singing, always use air. But when it comes to French horn, when you think about that steady air and like buzzing the lips, the placement of the mouthpiece is a little different from the other instruments. So just always remember the 2/3 upper lip. Think about the fleshy part of the lips and everything that the mouthpieces are touching. Never be afraid to look in the mirror. Look at yourself play. That's how a lot of people get better. That's how I got better. Just keep those things in mind, and happy practicing.